nhưng ta mới gameplay tụ óng gì mấy nào nè ta mới sao đấy ta mới ta sẽ mới gameplay tụ óng thế nè một cái insane but the kite honest review ta mới ta let's go mới cái review
How strong is she? Well, as of right now, keep in mind
mới sao giờ chưa tan đắng như mới sao nè.
it is still early testing. Mavuika does seem to be a very, very strong main DPS, but with one sort of problem you need to keep in mind. Now, before we get into that, I do want to say that her numbers kind of speak for themselves. Her personal damage is really high. Just as far as preliminary team calculations go, she seems to be up there as one of the strongest DPSs in her optimal teams, seemingly above everyone who isn't Nevalette. Without getting into direct comparisons though, her personal damage is just really strong. Now, with that in mind, that is a big strength of hers that she does really good damage.
Mà liên đó nè. Really? Cho mà này xì má nữa hả? Xí đằng xí còn tha xí zero á. Xí zero mà liên impossible. Ý tao impossible mà như vậy nè. Này xí sách á. Mà xí zero mà liên nè. Liên impossible mà nè.
And also, it's something that gets better with not just investment, but more specifically also vertical investment. So she's a character who has a really good signature weapon and also some of the strongest early constellations in the game, with her C2 being an incredible DPS upgrade that while is
Công lại sao C0 or 1 cho mình đáy C0 or 1 mình liếc nè. Mình đáy ở đây bây giờ tao đang chẳng ban và đắng như mấy này. Sao giờ C0 or 1 mà liếc đi mấy cái cầm rõ này cầm rõ. Cái cầm rõ ở đây chụp đây. C0 Mavuika can hit 1 million per day. What? Ông xin hắn hả? Ông xin hit 3 million ạ. Xin hắn 3 million ạ.
Isn't mandatory by any means if you are someone who cares about early constellations, well, a C2 Mavuika can feel like a pretty broken character even by C2 standards. She's a character who has good front-loaded damage, and as I said, some versatility in the sense of sort of being designed around a capable and strong main DPS, but also being able to use her as an off-fielder. Also, she's a character who synergizes really well, as mentioned, with the melt reaction in particular, and vaporize as well, but basically trying to buff your big front-loaded amounts of damage which come from your burst and also your skill hits, but again, mainly your burst that can do insane amounts of damage by triggering these multiplicative reactions, using all of your buffs, and really just being able to one-shot content. Now, while obviously I am using Mavuika's signature, and I am at a high investment level with 5-star supports in my team, the fact that I can still melt for over 1 million definitely is nothing to scoff at. She's a character who has some weaknesses that I'll cover.
Nè, nó bơm này nó bơm này nè, bơm là liên nè. Team sẽ lấy xin đánh cho mỗi bên này. Sao hảo rồi vậy này. Trong thằng mấy này phù đồng pi món.
But definitely has some strengths that I want to emphasize as well. The fact that she can be a strong main DPS, but also have a separate playstyle where she can just kind of be an off-field support who will still do a big chunk of your team's damage if you manage to melt or just buff her burst at all, and then apply pyro from off-field at a rate that is, yes, slower than Shangling, but also doesn't require energy recharge, and still will have good damage on top of also buffing your team through potentially the hero set if you choose to run it on her, and her passive that will give your active character a damage buff. The fact that she can also be played as this sub DPS in a team where you don't necessarily need other Natland supports or any specific character is genuinely really nice. Now, again, as a support, she doesn't have as much pyro application as someone like Shangling. She typically makes up for it by giving you buffs and strong damage, but they're characters that can have different use cases, and it's important to understand that at the very least, Mavuika is a character who, on one hand, can be a strong DPS, and on the other, can just be used as a sub DPS or off-field burst support if that's something that you want in various different teams. With that in mind, though, there are some weaknesses that I want to mention and a big catch that is attached to her personal damage. Firstly, you have to keep in mind that after her burst, you only have 7 seconds of sort of buffed damage. Because of this, you need to make sure that every hit you do is as buffed and as optimal as you can. You don't have that much flexibility in your rotation, as missing out on even a second of your buff uptime will make you lose out on a ton of damage. She also will be spinning around on a motorbike, which is very subjective on whether or not you like that, but keep in mind that rotating around doing as many many donuts as you can, oftentimes inside of Bennett's
មិនចឹងក៏សិនឡើងមិនចឹង
circle is going to be
Rồi lấy tụi ông
generally
lăng
the
mày.
strongest playstyle,
Lấy
so
tụi ông
while
chắc chọc
it
á
can
chăng?
be very
Cọp
satisfying, it
chảo
may
á.
not be for everyone. Now, as far as Mavuika's biggest weakness though, and something that I really want to talk about in this video, it is her dependence on
Why?
certain teammates to really get the most value out.
មិនសធម្មតាចូល 100k ហ្នឹងនេះគាត់ hit ធម្មតានេះជីមតោច្រេ 100k Oh my god ជីមហូតខុស1លានមិនទេ
of her. Now, while a ton of the strongest
បាត់ស៊ីនស៊ីដាលីហ្នឹងអត់ស៊ីហ្នឹងនេះចាំមកយកចឹងយកស៊ីលីមុនចឹងចុះអាហ្នឹងលេងមកស៊ីដាលីមែលនេះធីមផ្សេងមែលកើតទេពួកអង្គតកផ្សេងជាង50កោរី
DPS characters in general
Yeah, I mean,
want specific
kan thi
supports to do the most damage. That's normal. What isn't really
ម៉ែ What the heck
it's to do the most damage. That's normal.
My god 3លានងក់បើចុះ multi target ទៀតណាស់នេះ3លាន Oh my god ក៏សិនធ្វើចឹងចាប់អត់ណាញ៉ាំចោលហ្នឹងមិនចាប់អត់ញ៉ាំមែនដូចជា power creep ពេកនេះវាញ៉ាំមែនវាដូចចាទៅមុនដូចមើលលេងឃើញញ៉ាំមែនមកទៅទិញថ្មីចឹងអី
What isn't really normal is the big difference Mavuika will gain
គាត់ជេមតោមួយសែនហ្នឹង
by running a 5-star Natlan support versus not running one. Having either Shilonin or Sidlali or both of them with Mavuika will make her teams feel way better and deal much more damage. While there are definitely alternatives that I will cover, like Ororon with Chevris, or even to a lesser extent Kachina or the Pyro main character, having a strong
Pyro main
Natlan character
Pyro
is essential for
Prowler.
Moalani's best teams. This is because the more Night Soul points you are consuming, the more fighting spirit stacks Mavuika will get, not just enabling her to use her burst, but also enabling her to get a bigger buff on her motorcycle's attacks, making her deal much more damage per rotation. Because of this, when team building with her, you oftentimes firstly want Bennett, who is a pretty highly contested support, but really good for Mavuika. ទៅ Bennett
ទៅអាអម Bennett មួយមានគ្រប់មុខហ្មងនេះគ្រប់មុខ reason ហ្មងនេះគ្រប់មុខ version ហ្នឹងយីមែនហើយតាំងពីចេញមកដល់ឥឡូវនេះ Bennett អត់បានមុខទេយីមែនអត់បានមុខសោះខ្សែ Pyro ខនជាតិមុននេះ
a ton of attack, healing, and also the Pyro resonance. The insane amount
but put situation to okay นั่นเลยC2 ឲ្យ C4 ក៏ដល់1លានដែរយីមែនធីម C4 ដល់1លានហ្នឹងបានកំមុនបាន 500k ជាង 600k ហ្នឹងឯងនេះ
of attack buff you're gaining is really big for Mavuika, and outside of just that, having a Natlan
មិនឆ្អោកនិយាយយកពេកស្ដាប់តនេះ
support in your party is almost essential. Without it, while Mavuika can gain some fighting spirit stacks herself by dealing damage on field, she will gain them very slowly. Because of this, it can be hard for her to get enough stacks back every rotation. She can oftentimes just barely use her burst, but won't have enough to really make the most out of her charge attacks, and even then, it can be hard to get her burst back in the first place. And so, okay, you want a Night Soul Natlan support. Well, what's the difference between the 5 and 4 stars? Well, as of right now, the 5 stars are just significantly better than the 4 stars, with one main exception. Firstly, Shilonin is a character who is just incredibly meta, very strong, borderline broken, and will give you a ton of buffs. The Natlan's character you can run basically whichever one it is, the scroll of the hero of Cinder City set to give your Mavuika huge
កើតកតតលេងបានតែគិតថាអូត្រូវការអា crystal នេះត្រូវការនេះត្រូវការ GO នេះត្រូវការនេះត្រូវការការប្រាសិទ្ធនេះបានជួយជំនួយ team ជំនួយបើជំនួយ damage របស់នេះកាសាកាត់ចឹង
huge buffs, but then what the character also does will affect how good they are with Mavuika. Consuming many Night Soul points efficiently while also giving you strong buffs or some form of utility is very valuable. Shilonin, for instance, will consume a lot of Night Soul points fast, on top of reducing the resistance of enemies by a lot, increasing your Mavuika's damage by a lot, and also give you some healing. Sidlali will give you shielding, cryo application, which can enable you to melt, and that is huge, while also being able to give you a supportive catalyst weapon such as her signature or thrill Swirling Tails, and
ចុះ
crucially,
President Tail ក៏បានដែរ
also reduce the pyro resistance of enemies. She also can melt some of her own damage and be just a really good support for Mavuika in general. Because of this, running either Shilonen or Sidlali or both together will be a part of
Shilonen
almost all of
almost
Mavuika's best
necessary.
teams. The difference between having them and
Pyro
not having them
Travelers
is genuinely
also
pretty
strong.
big because
Chồng.
they'll give you more fighting spirit stacks than the alternatives,
Chẳng
more
budget
damage,
chẳng
more
budget
buffs, and more of just
Mavuika chẳng này
everything
lấy
that I
Pyro con
mentioned.
lấy
They're
Pyro
strong characters that are
Pyro Traveler
basically
này
meta in their own right, especially Shilonen, on
Bật
top
cốt-
of synergizing
bật cốt
well
Python.
with Mavuika in particular.
Okay.
Also, while this video is mostly about a C0 Mavuika,
Tụi
I
ông
will
chắc
point out that
đôi
at
Red Dead
C1, she does
cái
gain
bỏ
more
cho
fighting
hơi.
spirit stacks herself,
Ý
making
bỏ
her
cho
a
ta
bit
nhóm
more
bỏ cho là như vậy này,
self-sufficient
nhóm
if you don't have
nấu
the best supports for
smart
her,
smart
but that is
mode
locked
này.
behind a constellation, so it's not something
Nhóm
I
chăm
really want to
rerun.
emphasize because it's not a part
High
of her
and
base kit, and it's kind of
that
like
I
selling a
will
solution
sell
to a
until
problem. Now, with that said, I don't want to
Something
make anyone
mùi-
feel
mùi
like they
sơn.
need 5 stars to play this character.
Okay.
I'm mentioning this because if you have these key supports, Mavuika becomes
Game
much
បុរាណ
better and much
ទេ
more
តែ
recommendable
ទូ
as a
ខន
main
ចេញ
DPS. Generally,
មក
in
សុ
her
ទ្ធតែ
best teams,
ហម
she's
តូ
very meta. Again, one of the strongest
ហ្នឹង
DPS
ហើយ
we've
តែ
seen.
កម្ម
Whereas without them, she's still definitely viable and still strong, but not nearly as strong. And
ចម្លែក
even
ខុសគេ
when
ហ្មង
compared
ញ៉ែ
to
តួ
other 5-star
ครับ
DPSs placed in
ถ้า
their
เราខុស
best
ខុសគេ
teams
ហ្មង
and
ញ៉ែ
in sort of free-to-play
ខ្ញុំខុសគេ
teams,
ហ្មង
quote unquote, the difference between a
សរសៃ
budget team
សរ
option
សៃ
and a premium team is
សរសៃ
very big
អា
when it
ខន
comes
នៅ
to Mavuika and much bigger
នៅ
than the norm.
ស្នេហ៍
On
សា
top
យ៉ា
of
អាច
just the support she wants,
មានឡានជិះ
Mavuika is
មាន
also
ឡាន
a
ជិះញ៉ែមែន
character who, as a main DPS,
សា
has
សា
a pretty
នៅ
strict
អា
rotation
នៅសិន
and
ហ្នឹង
is someone who you
គេ
can't
ជឿ
really
លឿន
swap
ញ៉ែមែន
in
ណា
and out
អា
of freely. After
តែ
using
សា
your burst,
យ៉ា
you want
ចឹ
to
ង
stay on
អាច
her for 7 seconds.
អាខននៅស្នេហ៍សាយ៉ាអាចមានឡានជិះនេះឡានជិះថេរេសាជិះឡានស្អីជិះឡាននេះតែជិះឡាននេះបុកនេះ
Making sure you're fully buffed and really getting the most out of every hit, which isn't the biggest deal. After all, I
ជិះឡានបូគីនីអីណានេះបុកនេះ
main
ចប់ហើយ
Shao, so it doesn't bother me, but it is something you need to keep in mind when you're evaluating the feel of a character and comparing them to others. Now, with that in mind, here's what I have to say to sort of refute that point. While everything that I just said is true,
Bà
Mavuika
ọt
can still
tiền
perform
đến
well
UA.
with some 4-star Natlan
Ở đằng này.
characters. The main
Thay
one is
ca giá ca
Sauron,
đừng
who
ca
can
tay
be placed in a
hai bát đi
Chevrolet
mê cái
solo
này, sao
team,
mình-
and
mình-
Mavuika's
sao mình đi mê cái?
performance there can still
Anh
be
phải
really
kri.
good. While you aren't melting
red.
or vaporizing your burst, you
Bên
get a
net
ton of
still
buffs
em
from
nó này, bên
characters
net.
like Chevy, the hero
Được bài.
set, and maybe even Bennett, who can all help make your damage still very, very high. On top of just
Oh,
that,
tụi ông
you
xây
can
ba năm
also
anh đã.
run someone like Kachina as a 4-star Shilonen replacement, who obviously won't give you the res shred, you'll lose out on damage there, and won't be as efficient at consuming night soul
អូ
points.
សាស៊ីនហ្នឹង
generally.
មានអា session stress របស់នេះអញ្ចឹងវាជំនួយមួយយ៉ាងមួយថែមទៀតរបស់នេះតែបើប្រើកែចំណាយវាអត់មានអាហ្នឹងទេអញ្ចឹងប្រើបានតែអត់សូវល្អដូច Xin ហ្នឹងណា
Speaking, but can still
Sinanda
get the
ba
job done and allow you to play Mavuika as a main DPS. Another sort of counter argument here is that Mavuika still remains flexible, even without a 5-star Natlan support, and so with that said, here's how I would rate Mavuika. Firstly, I think it is no secret that if played in the correct teams and invested into, Mavuika is an incredibly strong carry and also a powerful sub DPS. She's a character
Sub What
who synergizes well with other Natlan characters, especially 5-stars, and gets a lot better with them. If you have the right team and know what you're doing, she can be one of the strongest DPSs with also the potential to have the highest personal damage. Like, you really can get so much out of her own personal DPS if you are buffing and melting it. Outside of that, she can be a flexible off-field sub DPS who can be used in many teams where you don't need as much power application as Shangling will give you, but still enough, on top of having good buffs, great personal damage, and not needing energy recharge. She also has a great signature and a
នេះ
really
អាវុធគាត់
strong
អែមស្រាមជំនួយគេ10ងាប់ទេ11%
second constellation
ហើយ
and
សារ effect ជំនួយគេរ៉េច្រើនអញ្ចឹងអាវុធជំនួយតែប៉ុណ្្នឹងបានណា
really good. I do want to proceed with caution about overhyping a character because while yes, I'm very excited for her and I think she is very strong, it is worth noting that she may not be for everyone. Because so much of her DPS potential is somewhat locked behind key supports that she depends on, who also happen to be 5-stars, it can make her value as a main DPS very heavily based on you and who you have. While Shilonen and Sidlali are both really strong 5-stars that I recommend on your account in general, so you may
អូ recommend ណា end your account អញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំ pull Sin មុនអញ្ចឹងនេះ Sin អី Sidlali នេះចុំ recommend Sidlali over Mavuika ចុំខ្សែអុក recommend ណាគេ recommend នេះ recommend 2នេះ over Mavuika នេះសា Mavuika ត្រូវការ team មកនេះត្រូវការ team ដើម្បីបាន damage ប៉ុណ្ណឹងនេះអញ្ចឹងគាត់ recommend តួអង្គ2នេះ support 2នេះ recommend នៅក្នុង account នេះគួរតែមានណានេះ ញ៉ាំដែរមានតួអង្គណែញ៉ាំដែរមានញ៉ាំដឹងហ្នឹងដែរហាមានតែដឹងអញ្ចឹងនេះ
to point out that these teams will still be able to perform, although not only will you lose out on the
នេះ team 4 star ทีม free to play អានេះបាន 6k តាមិន 6k តា
damage, to point out that these teams
Man,
will
6K.
still be able to perform.
6k ផា C4 ដល់ដល់នេះហ្នឹងតា 6k នេះចុះមានការស្ហាចឹង mail ជាមួយ sorcery គាត់ថាបាក់លេងញ៉ឹមមែន team នេះបាក់លេងនេះវាបាក់លេងស្អីប៉ឹងលើទូអង្គផ្កាយនេះទៅប៉ឹងហ្នឹងហើយគាត់ថាមកកាហ្នឹងហើយនេះបើគាត់លេងតែបើយើងខ្ជិលលេង deep អីលេង off field ទៅនេះដាក់ team ដាក់ក្នុង team support ទៅនេះ off field deep off field deep អេ
Perform, although not only will you lose out on the damage buffs that your 5-star supports would give you, but it also will be harder to consume Night Soul points rapidly to get your burst back and stacks of fighting spirit back in time for your next rotation. So keep in mind that it's not just the damage, it's also the Night Soul. But anyways, I'm gonna move on from that point. I just wanted to make it and say that these teams still work. You just need to be mindful of what
3k នេះ team នេះ 3k តិចមែនតែ team មុនបើhan 3k team មក overload
you're losing. And it's also worth pointing out that even in teams or content where you may not be able to get your burst back fast, which is important, because Mavuika does so much damage, you can oftentimes one rotate content.
Chilali buff Ayaka បានអត់បងតាមដឹងបើខ្ញុំតអានលេងហង
as like impressive, while also being a good support option that you
គាត់ថានេះ Chilali ដូចបើសម្រាប់បើមួយកាបណ្ដោយការសម្រាប់បើមួយកាហ្មងនេះភាសា
may or may
Got
not
to know
need.
any
Again,
the
she's someone who's easy to build, doesn't
cái
need
âm
energy,
card.
and can be used in a lot of teams where you
cái
usually
ta
won't
lên
need
mail
as
bắn
much
card
pyro
này,
as
lên
Shang
mail
Lin
là
gives
cái.
you. With that in mind, strong, versatile, and an impressive character, but on the other, I'm not a big fan of the fact that she gets so much better in her premium team as a DPS, even compared to other characters like on average, because of
អូនេះគាត់ not a big fan ដែរចរតើហ្នឹងត្រូវការ premium team ដើម្បីលេងខ្លាំងនេះអញ្ចឹងណែគាត់អត់ពេញចិត្តកន្លែងហ្នឹងនេះគាត់និយាយអញ្ចឹងហ្នឹងហើយអញ្ចឹងបាក់ដែរដូចខ្ញុំឥឡូវហ្នឹងបើយើងយកមកគឺអត់មាន team របស់គាត់ premium team ហ្នឹងលេងបានតែវាអត់សូវលយដល់អា team នេះអា team របស់គាត់ដូចអាយាកាអញ្ចឹងកាយកាចេញដំបងនេះអាយាកាខ្ញុំលេងដំបងខ្ញុំលេង team ធម្មតាហ្នឹងត្រូវបាន premium team ឥឡូវទុកចោលដូចអាយាកាអញ្ចឹង premium team ត្រូវការតួអង្គ 5 star ដើម្បី support គាត់ហ្នឹងនេះអញ្ចឹងវាต้องនៅខ្សោយគាត់ឡើងហ្នឹងមួយនេះដើម្បីចង់លេងខ្លាំងចង់លេង damage គាត់រៀងនេះច្រើន
all of the factors that I mentioned. Really wanting Bennett and then also a good Natland support is something that you need to keep in mind, which may be easy for you if you have those characters available, or a lot more
មែនតា
expensive.
បើមានតួអង្គពីរហ្នឹងស៊ីផុយបងនេះគ្នាយើងតែយើងម្ចាស់គ្នាយើងអត់មានទេមែនអត់មានទេគាត់ថាគ្នាយើងអត់មានចឹងទេគ្នាយើងអត់ជឿគ្នាយើងមិនជឿគ្នាយើងមានទាំងអស់ទេគ្នាយើងមានទាំងស៊ីអាលីមានទាំងស៊ីនិនមានទាំងមើលកាគ្នាយើងមានធៀបហ្នឹងអត់បើមានអ្នកគ្នាហេងយ៉ាងនេះមែនឥឡូវហ្នឹងមកគ្នាមានហេងយ៉ាងមែននេះនេះគ្នាត្រូវហ្មងដឹង pool អត់ខុសនេះបើនេះ pool បើមាន team ហ្នឹង team premium team ភាព team មើលកានេះមានស៊ីលីស៊ីនិនស៊ីលីមើលកាចាំចេញអញ្ចឹងបើគ្នាមានទៀតហ្នឹងហើយនេះគ្នាកប់សេរីហ្មងហ្នឹងគ្នាចំណាយលុយហ្នឹងចំណាយលុយនេះ
for others. At the same time though, she can be played as
អានេះខ្ញុំមានស៊ីនិនហ្នឹង
support in many different teams, which is something that I've emphasized almost. Her value
pull
for
in
you
and
and
pull
for each
they were
account
gonna
will
men not
vary,
pull they
and
gonna
her
play.
performance will vary. And I really wish
She
she
at least
didn't
support
depend on
Lord
or want
that
these
more
5-star Natland
like you
supports
know
so
choose
badly.
how.
It really is a big difference for DPS
why
teams.
that more
I want
hit
to properly emphasize that, and it's something I'm
Hit
not really fond of, and I hope I made that clear.
លេជាមួយមកទៀតលេជាមួយលេខនោះមកទៀតស៊ីនិនអស់ច្រឡំ
I wanted to make a separate
ស៊ី
video
លីអញ្ចឹងពួកស៊ីលីនឹងលឺបេះមែនតា
where I will cover everything you need to know
ពួកស៊ីលី
about
បេះ
how
ជាង
to
គ្នា
build her and play her. So stay tuned for that if you're interested.
ហ្នឹងហើយ
Coming out
support
short
សារគាត់ support ជាងលេអានចាន team នេះស៊ីលីតើមកការរៀងរើសតិច team តិចគ្នាសារគាត់ premium ពេកគ្នា
after this video. I'm very grateful I got to have early access to Mavuika, and be sure to check out the newest Genshin web event linked in the description for some in-game XP and
Let's
artifact
go,
enhancement rewards.
តើដល់យល់ពីនេះយល់ពីស៊ីលីយល់ពីមកការនេះ